Maybe you've noticed it happens with strangers. When their words land easily, but your own answer arrives a beat too late. Maybe it happens with people you actually know well, where the delay feels even more embarrassing, because you know exactly what you want to say, just not fast enough in English. And maybe it happens most quietly with yourself, in your own head, where your thoughts still default back to your first language, the second nobody is listening. None of that means you're stuck. It means the practice you've been doing hasn't reached every part of your actual day yet. And today we're going to fix that. Picture two people who both understand English equally well. One of them has to stop, think, and mentally build every sentence before it comes out. Like solving a small puzzle every single time they open their mouth. The other one just talks, not because they're smarter, and not because they know more words. They talk the way you talk in your first language, without noticing the mechanics underneath it. That second person isn't gifted. They simply practice differently. And today, we're going to build that same kind of practice into your actual day, not into a textbook, into your day. Here's what speaking English like it's your first language really means. It doesn't mean perfect grammar. It doesn't mean sounding like a news anchor. It means your reactions, your small daily thoughts, your quick answers start arriving in English automatically, the same way they already arrive automatically in your first language. That's not a talent. That's a pattern, built through repetition, in the exact same ordinary moments you already live through every day. By the end of this video, you'll have 6 specific daily practices spread across your morning, your afternoon, and your evening that gradually train your brain to treat English less like a subject you study and more like a voice you already own. And I'll tell you now, the 5th one has almost nothing to do with speaking, yet it might do more for your fluency than any of the others. This is English Master Path, where we build real speaking confidence through small daily habits, not more grammar rules. Let me ask you something honestly. When you speak your first language, do you plan your sentences before you say them? Of course not. They simply arrive, shaped by years of using that language in real, ordinary moments, not in a classroom. Here's the truth nobody tells you. English can work exactly the same way for you. Not because you'll suddenly know more, but because you'll start using it the way you already use your first language, inside your actual life, not separate from it. Now pause here for just a moment before we begin. Think about your first language and where it actually lives in your day. It's not confined to 1 hour of study. It's in your half-asleep thoughts in the morning, your small reactions during the day, the private conversation you have with yourself before sleep. That's the model we're going to copy for English, not a lesson plan, a living pattern woven through hours you're already spending. We're going to build this across 6 moments in a normal day: morning, midday, afternoon, evening, night, and one weekly habit that ties the whole week together. Stay with me, because by the middle of this video, you'll start to see your entire day differently. Not as a schedule to fit English into, but as a place where English already belongs. Practice 1 happens in the first 2 minutes after you wake up. Before your phone, before your coffee, before anything else. Most people's first thoughts of the day happen in their first language, automatically, without choosing it. That's completely normal. But it also means your brain's very first habit of the day is reinforcing the old pattern before you've even gotten out of bed. Think of a learner named Mira who spent months practicing English only in the evening. After a long day, when she was tired and had little energy left for anything new, Her progress felt painfully slow, not because evening practice is wrong, but because her mornings, the freshest, most alert part of her day, were left completely untouched. When she moved just 2 minutes of practice to the moment she woke up, something shifted. Her mind was clearer, calmer, and far more willing to try. She later said the biggest change wasn't the English itself. It was how much less it cost her to attempt it. Practicing on tired, depleted energy in the evening had always felt like effort. Practicing in that first quiet minute of the morning, before the day had a chance to drain her, felt almost effortless by comparison. And that difference alone was enough to keep the habit alive on days when her motivation was otherwise low. Here's the practice. The moment you wake up, before reaching for your phone, describe your first 3 thoughts out loud. In English. Nothing complicated. I woke up. I feel a little tired. Today I need to finish some work. Say it with me now, as if you just opened your eyes. I woke up. I feel a little tired. Today I need to finish some work. That's it. 2 minutes, once, right at the start of your day. You'll know this is working when English starts to feel like part of waking up, instead of something you switch into later. One mistake to avoid here. Don't reach for your phone to check a translation or a word you've forgotten. If a word doesn't come, describe the idea differently instead. The goal of this practice isn't correctness. It's starting your day already speaking, not already searching. If your mornings are genuinely rushed, an alarm, a family to get ready, no quiet moment at all, don't abandon the practice. Shrink it. Even one sentence, said quietly while you're getting dressed or making coffee, still counts. The purpose isn't a long, calm ritual. It's simply making sure English is the very first language your brain reaches for today, even if that reach lasts only a few seconds. There's a simple reason mornings matter so much for this. Your mind is quieter right after waking up, with fewer competing thoughts, fewer distractions, and less of the day's noise pulling your attention in different directions. Whatever pattern you reach for first in that quiet window tends to set the tone for how your brain approaches language for the rest of the day. That's not a guarantee. It's simply a small advantage. And small advantages, repeated daily, tend to add up in ways that feel surprising later. Now, once your mornings include this small habit, we move into the part of your day that's easiest to lose completely. Practice 2 is the midday direct thought check-in, and it takes about 30 seconds, which is exactly why it works even on your busiest days. Somewhere around midday, whenever it's convenient, pause for a moment and put one single thought into English, out loud or silently, about whatever is actually happening around you right now. Consider a learner named Hassan, who had a demanding job and genuinely believed he had no time to practice English during the day. Between meetings, emails, and constant interruptions. But when he tried this one small check-in, just once, around lunchtime, he realized it cost him almost nothing. 30 seconds. No schedule change. No extra effort. Within a few weeks, that 30-second habit had quietly repeated itself well over 100 times. More real practice than most people get from an occasional hour-long lesson. Try it right now, wherever you are in your day. Put one thought into English about this exact moment. Whatever is actually happening around you right now. I am watching this video. I am learning something useful. I am going to try this today. Good. That's the entire practice. Repeated once a day, at whatever moment fits naturally into your schedule. This matters because fluency doesn't grow only from long study sessions. It grows from frequency, from touching the language often, even briefly, so your brain never goes a full day without using it. A 30-second habit that happens daily will always outperform an hour-long habit that happens once a week. Now pause for a second and think honestly about your own day. Where does English usually disappear completely? The part of your day where you never think about it at all? That gap is exactly where this 30-second habit belongs. You don't need a perfect time for it. You need a reliable one. Something that already happens every day. A lunch break, a commute, a short walk. So the habit attaches itself to something that was already going to happen anyway. Once this single check-in feels easy, and only then, you can add a second one later in the afternoon, without turning it into a bigger task than it needs to be. The goal was never to fill your day with English lessons. It was to make sure English never fully disappears for an entire day, even on the days when nothing else about your schedule leaves room for anything more. We've covered the start of your day and the middle of it. Now let's move into something that shapes how naturally you express feelings in English, not just facts. Practice 3 is about naming emotions, not just objects. Most learners can describe what's around them. A chair, a phone, a street, but freeze completely when it's time to describe how they feel. And feelings are exactly what makes speech sound human and natural, not just correct. Picture a learner named Renata, who could describe her entire apartment fluently in English. Every object, every room. But when a friend asked how she was feeling after a difficult week, she went completely silent, not because she lacked the words, but because she had never practiced attaching emotion words to her own life in English before. Here's the practice. Once during your afternoon, notice one small feeling you're actually experiencing and name it directly in English, along with a short reason. I feel a little tired because today was long. I feel proud because I finished something difficult. I feel calm right now. Say one of those with me, adjusted to something true for you today. I feel a little tired because today was long. This works because native speakers don't just describe the world. They narrate their inner state constantly, without thinking about it. Practicing this daily teaches your brain that English is allowed to hold your actual feelings, not just neutral facts about objects and schedules. If naming a feeling feels awkward at first, start even smaller. Simply say, I feel okay, or I feel fine, and build from there over the following days. The goal isn't emotional depth right away. It's simply proving to yourself that feelings and English can exist in the same sentence. There's a reason this practice matters more than it seems to at first. Most conversations, the real ones that build relationships, aren't really about facts. They're about how someone is doing, how their week went, how something made them feel. If you can only describe objects and schedules in English, you can survive a conversation, but you can't really connect in one. Naming even small, ordinary feelings daily is what slowly gives your English the warmth that makes people feel like they're talking to you, not just receiving information from you. One mistake to avoid here: don't wait for a big dramatic feeling before you try this. Big feelings are rare, and waiting for one means the practice barely happens at all. Small, ordinary feelings, mild tiredness, quiet contentment, a flicker of impatience, are far more common and far more useful to practice with, because they show up almost every single day, giving you far more chances to repeat the habit. Now, let's take everything we've built so far and put it in front of another real human being, because that's ultimately where fluency is tested. Practice 4 is the real conversation minute, and it's exactly what it sounds like. One genuine minute of speaking English with a real person every single day. No exceptions. No waiting for a better moment. Think of a learner named Sammy who avoided real conversations for almost a year, convinced he needed to prepare more first. When he finally committed to just 1 minute a day, with anyone available, a coworker, a neighbor, even a short video call, he expected it to feel small and insignificant. Instead, within a month, those tiny 1 minute conversations had reshaped how comfortable he felt the moment someone actually spoke to him. Today, find 1 minute somewhere in your day and speak English with a real person. It doesn't need to be a deep conversation. A simple greeting, a short question, a small exchange about your day is enough. If no one is available in person, a short voice message to a friend, a language partner, or even a recording of yourself describing your day works as a substitute. If you genuinely don't know anyone to practice with, this single minute doesn't require a formal language partner, a coworker who happens to speak English, a neighbor, a delivery worker, a stranger asking for directions. Any of these count. The goal isn't finding the perfect conversation partner. It's simply making sure one real, unscripted exchange happens somewhere in your day, even if it's brief and imperfect. Here's the truth nobody tells you. 1 minute a day, done consistently, will move your speaking confidence further than an occasional long conversation you keep postponing until you feel ready. You don't need to be perfect. You need to start again and again in small doses your schedule can actually sustain. One mistake to avoid here. Don't treat an awkward exchange as proof the practice failed. A short pause, a misunderstood word, a sentence that comes out smaller than you intended. These are normal parts of real conversation, not signs to stop. The measure of success for this practice isn't how smooth the minute felt. It's simply whether the minute happened at all. Stay with me, because this next practice is the one that surprises almost everyone. Because it happens in complete silence, and yet it may shape your fluency more than the others combined. Practice 5 is the evening mental rewind, and it takes place quietly, usually right before sleep, with no speaking out loud at all. Before you fall asleep tonight, spend 2 or 3 minutes silently replaying your day in English, in your mind, the way you naturally replay your day in your first language when you're lying in bed. Consider a learner named Ren, who practiced speaking diligently every day but never once thought about her day in English afterward. Her spoken practice was strong, but her private thinking stayed entirely in her first language, which meant English still felt like a separate room she visited, rather than a language she actually lived inside. This is different from your morning practice, even though both involve narrating your own thoughts. The morning practice speaks new thoughts out loud as your day begins. This evening practice reviews thoughts you already had, silently, as your day ends. Together, they frame your entire day in English, from the first thought you notice to the last one before sleep, without requiring you to speak out loud at every moment in between. Here's the practice. As you're falling asleep, silently walk through a few moments from your day in English. I woke up early. I had a difficult meeting. I spoke a little English today, even if it felt hard. No pressure for perfect grammar. No need to say it out loud. Simply let your mind narrate your own day in the language you're trying to make your own. This matters because your private, unspoken thoughts are often the last stronghold of your first language. The place translation habits survive the longest, because nobody ever asks you to change them. Rewinding your day in English, quietly, right before sleep, slowly moves English into that private space too. Not just into the moments where you're actively speaking. You'll know this practice is working when you catch your own mind starting to drift into English on its own. Not because you told it to, but because it's simply becoming familiar territory. That moment doesn't usually arrive quickly, and it rarely announces itself loudly. It tends to show up as a quiet surprise. A passing thought you almost don't notice was in English at all. Until a second later, when you do. We've covered 5 daily practices, one for each part of your day. Now let's tie them together into something that carries across the entire week. Not just a single day. Practice 6 is the weekly thread, and it's less a habit and more a simple weekly check-in with yourself. Once a week, spend 5 quiet minutes reviewing your 6 daily habits, not to judge yourself, but simply to notice which ones felt natural and which ones you skipped. Think of a learner named Devon, who tried to build all 6 daily habits perfectly from day one, felt overwhelmed within a week, and quit entirely. When he tried again, this time reviewing his week honestly instead of aiming for perfection, he noticed something useful. Some habits fit his life easily, others needed adjusting, and a few needed to happen at a different time of day than he first planned. Here's the practice. Once a week, ask yourself 3 simple questions. Which of these 6 habits felt easiest this week? Which one did I forget most often? What's one small change that would make tomorrow's practice easier? Adjust based on your honest answers, not based on some ideal version of a perfect learner. Devon's honest answer, when he finally tried this, was that his midday check-in kept getting forgotten. But his evening rewind never did. Simply because it was already attached to something he did every night without fail, going to bed. So instead of forcing a new habit into a busy afternoon, he moved his midday practice to a moment that already existed, right after he sat down for lunch. Nothing about the habit itself changed, only its timing did, and that small shift was enough to make it stick. This weekly check-in also protects you from one of the most common reasons learners quit entirely: all or nothing thinking. Missing a single day of any of these 6 practices doesn't undo your progress, and it isn't a sign of failure. It's simply information, a signal that something about the timing or the setting needs a small adjustment, not a reason to abandon the whole routine. Progress here isn't a perfect streak. It's a general direction, mostly forward, with occasional missed days that don't actually matter as much as they feel like they do in the moment. Small steps, real progress. This is where most people stop, right before the part that actually changes things. Don't stop. Before we move into the final method, it's worth naming something honesty. None of these 6 practices will feel life-changing on their own on any single day. A 2-minute morning habit, a 30-second pause, one named feeling, one real minute of conversation, a few quiet minutes before sleep, a 5-minute weekly review. None of it looks impressive, written out like this. But that's exactly how your first language was built too. In thousands of small, unremarkable moments, not in a handful of dramatic breakthroughs. The lack of drama isn't a flaw in this method. It's the entire point. Now let's turn everything we've covered into one simple thread you can use starting tomorrow morning. Call it the morning voice, midday pause, evening echo. In the morning, speak your first thoughts out loud in English. At some point midday, drop in one direct thought, even for 30 seconds. And in the evening, quietly replay your day in English before you sleep. 3 simple touch points. Spread naturally across a day you're already living, not an extra hour bolted onto an already busy schedule. Let's walk through what a full day actually looks like using this thread. You wake up, And instead of reaching for your phone first, you described 3 thoughts out loud in English, even quietly, even half asleep. Later, somewhere in the middle of a busy afternoon, you pause for 30 seconds and put one honest thought into English about whatever is happening around you. The noise of the room, the task in front of you, the weather outside a window. At some point, you notice a real feeling: tiredness, satisfaction, mild frustration, and you name it directly, out loud or quietly, attaching it to a small reason. You find 1 minute to speak with a real person, however small the exchange. A greeting, a question, a short comment about the day. And before you fall asleep, you silently walk back through your day in English one more time, not analyzing it, just narrating it gently to yourself, the way your mind already narrates things in your first language. None of these moments require extra time carved out of your schedule. They live inside the day you're already having, attached to things you were always going to do anyway. You don't need all 6 practices perfectly in place tomorrow. Choose the one that felt the easiest while you were listening, and use only that one for the next 3 days. Then add a second. This isn't a race, it's a rhythm. And rhythms are built slowly, one repeated day at a time. Let that sentence land before you move on. Here's what we covered today. Starting your morning with a short voice warm-up instead of silence. Dropping one honest thought into English at some point during your busy day. Naming your actual feelings, not just the objects around you. Finding 1 real minute of conversation every single day without waiting to feel ready. Quietly rewinding your day in English before sleep, so even your private thoughts start shifting. And reviewing your week honestly, adjusting instead of aiming for an impossible perfect routine. Speaking English like it's your first language was never about sounding flawless. It was about English quietly becoming part of your actual life. Your mornings, your small daily thoughts, your feelings, your evenings. Instead of staying a subject you occasionally visit and then leave again. Notice something about all 6 of these practices. None of them asked you to sit down for an hour with a textbook. None of them asked you to memorize anything difficult. Every single one simply asked you to let English exist inside moments you were already living through. Waking up, a quiet afternoon pause, a passing feeling, a short exchange with another person, the last few minutes before sleep, and one honest look back at your week. That's the entire secret hiding behind the phrase, speak it like your first language. Your first language never needed a separate hour of the day. It simply lived inside all of them, quietly, without asking permission. If you've spent a long time feeling like fluency was somewhere far away, waiting for the right course, the right teacher, or the right amount of free time, consider a different possibility. It was never that far away. It was simply waiting for you to let it live inside your ordinary day, instead of somewhere separate from it. Today, you started making that small shift, and however small it feels right now, it counts. Tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before the day pulls your attention in 10 different directions, you'll have a choice. Reach for your first language automatically, the way you always have, or reach for English instead, on purpose, for just a few seconds. Neither choice will feel dramatic in the moment, but repeat it daily, across mornings, afternoons, and evenings. That small choice is exactly how a second language slowly becomes something closer to a first one. Tonight, before you sleep, try just one practice from this video, even the smallest one, on purpose. Tell me in the comments, which of these 6 daily practices do you think will be the easiest for you to start tomorrow morning? And which one do you think will take the longest to feel natural? If this helped you see your own day a little differently, subscribe to English Masterpad. We build real speaking confidence here, one honest, doable habit at a time, woven into the life you're already living. And if you try even one of these 6 practices tomorrow, notice how small it actually feels while you're doing it. That smallness isn't a warning sign. It's usually a good one. The habits that quietly last are almost never the dramatic ones. They're the ones small enough to survive a busy day, a bad mood, or a tired evening, and still get done anyway. That fear you feel right before you speak, it's normal. It's not permission to stay silent. Small steps, real progress. And tomorrow morning, before you even reach for your phone, that progress can begin again, quietly, in the first few seconds of an ordinary day.